Alright, welcome. This is MDawg, of course from MDawg Gaming, and today we're going to do a quick video here on Lord of the Rings Online, a much loved MMO that of course has been with us now for a long time. I've jumped in and out of LOTRO over the years, and recently came back to the game mostly because of the introduction of the legacy servers. I'm playing on the server, I think it's called Anor, something like that, and that's really what brought me back to the game. And I don't know, if you want to know more about the legacy server, of course you can find that. I may at some point create a video talking more about my experiences on the legacy server, but this is going to be more specifically about a lore master. It's a class that I've often enjoyed in LOTRO and been fascinated with, although this time around leveling this lore master all the way up to level 50, which of course on this legacy server is going to be max level, is the longest I've ever played one. And it's been so fun, I thought I would just make a quick video about my experiences. Mostly we're going to talk about blue versus red trait trees and kind of how I've done things. And hopefully this will be a helpful starting point if you're just starting out as a lore master. I'm by no means an expert, but have put quite a bit of time into it at this point, so I just thought I'd share some things. First of all, the big decision on blue versus red, not that there's a right answer, and to be fair, I've not experimented with yellow line at all. There's some specific roles that lore masters take, especially in group content, and that's not what this video is about. This is really about soloing and questing out on the landscape. And so what I did and what I recommend, although again this is not a right or wrong thing, but what I recommend is going blue line early in your lore master's leveling process, and then switching to red line if you so desire. For me, the sweet spot seemed to be in the 30s. I would say, kind of looking back, somewhere between 35 and 40 is probably an ideal time to switch to red line if you so desire. Especially, one of the things that compelled me to switch was I was doing a lot of the epic quest line at that point in those levels. And sometimes in the epic quest line you get those buffs. And according to which epic questline it is, sometimes the buff only seemed to impact me and not my pet as much. And so that's what sort of pushed me towards redline. And then as I was playing it more, I realized how powerful redline had gotten by that level. I think early on it is, first of all, a lot of fun, and also makes a lot of sense to level as blue line, which is of course the line that focuses more on your pet. And to be clear, to enjoy this, you do have to enjoy the fact of knowing that your pet is going to be doing a lot of the damage. If kind of having a more relaxed leveling experience, the pet doing a lot of the damage, you sort of being the general, sort of organizing how you're going from fight to fight, and CCing some of the enemies as your pet is mowing them down. If that sounds fun, I mean I've spent a lot of time with my lore master, frankly, going around and gathering wood while my pet is out there taking out all of our foes. And so there's a lot of way you can approach it. But if that's an okay, some people want to be the one that's doing the primary damage and sort of in the midst of it, and if that's the case, blue line might be more frustrating for you. But let's look at blue line real quick. Again, I don't know if this is exactly right, but this is kind of how I did and would approach the trait tree line for blue. And then in a moment we'll switch back to red, so I can show you what I'm doing here at this point now that I'm level 50. Again, focused on soloing landscape is sort of how I've set up these trait trees. So basically the rule here is going to be, we want to take anything that increases either our pet or our damage. We're not too worried about more vitality, more life, all that. The pet, as long as you're setting up the fights right and using your CC, you're gonna be able to make it. They're gonna be able to survive. You just want to get that damage in. So we're gonna take 5 points in Sign of the Wild over the protection one. And so for the first 5, we'll go Sign of the Wild Rage, and then on the next line here, now actually I did do Eagle early, and it only takes 1 point to put a point into Eagle, and I did that merely because I wanted to have an Eagle pet, and I even have the Tundra version of the Eagle, so I did that for fun. But that's not the most. I mean, I would say it's for reasons I'll go into in a minute. It's not necessarily the best pet to take for kind of how I was playing, at least. So on this line, I never found that Inner Flame did that much. Other people might have a different experience, but I think it's really all about go for the throat here. Again, this is increasing pet critical chance and damage. With 5 points, you're getting 5%, so that seems pretty significant. And of course, the more damage your pet can do, the more that 5% will be evaluated at. But after that, we're going to come back to prepared materials. Anything that lowers your induction as a lore master is great, and if we were playing red line, then this would be, you know, as important, if not more important, than any skill we're taking. But in blue line, it's not quite as valuable, only because again, your pet's doing so much of the damage. So at least early, I would take this one, Prepare for War, because this is affecting not only your damage, but also your pet's physical and tactical mastery, which translates to some damage there. So we're going to take 5 points in that. And then we start getting into these other ones. Anything that gives you a skill, which this is going to give us Catmint. So according to what pet you're using, it's going to be different things. If you're using, let's say the Eagle, for example, it is giving more. Basically, all of the catnip affects your whatever pet you're using's abilities, right? So, like with the Eagle, it talks about beak, rend, and then morale, tap, and damage are all being impacted. The Bog Guardian, which is actually the one that I'm going to tell you might be the best one to use on blue line, is giving you bursting, root, stun chance, and damage. So again, that's damage. So I think it's worth putting 1 point there, since it's only one, and it will give you that ability. The ability has a 45-second cooldown, so you won't necessarily be using it every fight, but most fights it will be up. Don't touch him is probably what we're going to put points into here because of Hearty Diet. Again, it's just about morale, both for you and your pet, and it's not even a percentage for you; it's a number. So I don't know, unless you're really having a hard time staying alive in certain fights or whatever, I just don't think it's worth it. So I'm going to put points here, and don't you touch him. Now that leaves 1 point, and I think this is the point, the place in which with 7 points left, I'm probably coming back up here and doing at least 1 point into prepared material. That's going to help your induction speed, and then let's see what we have here. Morale exchange. That's going to heal you a little bit. You don't really need that. After battle threat. This is the one that I think I would put 3 points in. On enemy defeat, your pet heals 2% of its maximum morale and gains an outgoing damage buff. So it's that damage buff we like. Plus, more morale to your pet actually is a good thing. That will keep you pulling more often. And so this is the point in which we need to spend, 2 more points to get to the next line. Catmint we already took, so we could put the 2 points in prepared materials, which is what I'm going to do. But it's always helpful to go back and look over what did we not take, what would be the most helpful. I think prepared material makes the most sense. So at level 50, with our class books done, we've got 1 more point to spend. And I'm not even sure if I've looked at this because I've been playing Redline for so long. It's probably this one. This is going to give all skill inductions a -3% and pet attack duration -3%. So synchronized movements is probably the way to go. Yeah. So anyway, this would be, let's apply that. There's our catnip skill that came down. So this is what I would do. Now the reason why I told you Bog Guardian, and I do really like the Bog Guardian, primarily it's because, well, it does really good damage and because it's ranged. And so you see how quickly he's killing. Now this is just a normal mob, so and if you're like level 25 to 35 or so, you're going to see your pet sometimes just one-shotting stuff, just getting those crits and just it. And so what I advise you to do, if you like, so on my action bars, I have everything, you know, like my second bar here is shift and all the numbers. My third bar is control and all the numbers. My fourth bar is alternate and all the numbers. You can actually drag over attack, right? So this forces your pet to attack whatever target you're on. I recommend you putting that somewhere, like for me, it's on shift 2. And so I can, just by hitting shift 2, I can send my pet off to attack whatever I want. You know, I might be over here going to attack another enemy, but I saw this one enemy that I wanted my pet to be attacking. And so, you know, that's what you're doing a lot. Again, it's more about, as in the blue line for me, it's more about being the general of the battlefield. So let's hit catnip for our pet here. So he's going to get his buff. And then we'll throw an attack on there. It's always good to throw burning embers on enemies, especially if it's something that is a signature mob or, you know, a little higher level, so you know it's going to live a little bit longer, because your pet does do bonus damage to anything that has burning embers on it. So that's kind of what we do with that. But it's so nice with the Bog Guardian, the fact that his attacks are ranged attacks. In a lot of cases, that'll let you take things down. Is this a... No, I was trying to see if there's any signatures, but it lets you take things down from a distance, and so just pulling what you want to pull, and your pet is not, because of line of sight, it doesn't know what to do. Your pet is not always just pulling things you don't want to pull, basically. The other thing I'll say real quick about pets is they all have these special abilities. If you want your pet to be in control of when it does its special ability, which it will basically just do it on cooldown, then you just right-click on all of these red commands. Put your pet on assist, or guard mode is what I usually have, and then right-click on all three of those red abilities, and your pet will just be good to go. All right, let's talk about red line, because that's blue line. Blue line is very fun. And even just from playing it here, I can tell that it would still be fun here, even at level 50. By the way, one more quick blue line note. If your pet does get killed, which it will at times, you'll get overwhelmed, right? Sometimes you may want to... Let's dismiss our Bog Guardian. If your pet dies in battle, you may want to get the bear up. And the only reason why I say that is because the bear has a special ability that forces enemies to attack it. So what I'll usually do is I'll have this skill somewhere easy where I can push it, and because if the animal dies and then you resummon a bear, that bear's not going to have any aggro, and so everything may at that point be coming to kill you, and you need something that can start pulling those mobs off. And I think the bear is just a little better than the other animals and then the other pets at doing that. So a quick note on, because that's going to happen. You're going to have encounters, more pulls that happen that go bad, go poorly, and all that. So, all right, let's switch back to red line, and I'll show you what this looks like for me. Again, I'm not starting over with this, but you know, at some point, and I'll try to talk through this as we're going through the skills, but at some point you're coming back up and putting more skills in abilities that are above. But this is really more. So one thing to note is that with red line, I use the cat or the lynx, because your anything in the cat family as red line. Here, let's go back to this. Let's re-specialize. 250 silver, that's fine. So if you look here, it says your feline companions have increased attack damage and slightly increased morale and power. So, you know, just again min-maxing a little bit there, I guess. You can use any pet you want, but you're going to get slightly more damage, perhaps, out of your cats. So as soon as this timer's up, we'll go back to our red line. We can look at this. So the first 5 points that I put in is actually going to be in tactical damage. And the reason why is this affects 10% of all of your attacks. It doesn't matter if it's lightning, fire, whatever it is. So we went 5 points into tactical. We then did take points into knowledge of storms, which is lightning type damage, and that's just because cracked earth, which is this ability down here, is just not something I use that much. It's an okay AoE attack. It does have a root at the end of the attack, but it takes so long to get there, it's not necessarily something that's going to get you out of a lot of trouble. So a couple points here. Again, come back up, start putting some points in Master of Fire. You do so much fire type damage in this build that eventually you are going to want the additional 15% fire type damage. On the third line, Sword and Storm is nice because it gives Staff Strike an occasional stun and a big burst of damage. It only happens once every 60 seconds. So if you use Staff Strike more than once every 60 seconds, you won't get this Sword and Storm ability. But I think it's worth having 1 point there. Again, 1 point in Lightning Storm because it does give you what may be the coolest, one of the coolest abilities in the game. I don't put multiple points in this, and I don't put points in Fierce Lightning because the cooldown is 1 minute 30 seconds. So to me, it's just not worth it. But when the cooldown is up, or if you've got multiple enemies there, it is nice. Even with only 1 point in it, it's doing a lot of damage. So I like that. You are going to, as you can, fill up Ancient Fire. This is one of the parts of the red line that it's really all about. Anything that's buffing Burning Embers, Gust of Wind, or the interaction thereof, this is giving Gust of Wind a chance to upgrade 2 Burning Embers dot effects at once, and because we got 5 points, it's 100% chance to do that. All right, come down the next. We've got 1 point in Slow Burn. I think as we, do get more points moving forward, we will look at more points into Slow Burn, but this really only comes into effect if it's a longer fight. But this is giving +1 to how many pulses Burning Embers is going to get. So how many times that damage over time is going to occur. And so we've got 1 point there. We have 5 points in Rapid Fire. And this is maybe the most important one on Redline. And this is, to me, why you don't play Redline until around level 35 to 40 when you can start putting points into this. Is minus 25% to all skill inductions. It really just takes so long to cast your different abilities as a Redline lore master. Before you get Rapid Fire, it makes it hard to justify not being Blue Line. But once you have this, the damage output that you can do as Redline starts to really go up. So that's why, to me, around 35 to 40, even just waiting until 40, I think is fine. But then you're starting to get into the swing of things, learning what Redline is all about, and starting to fill up your points into Rapid Fire. I do have 1 point right now into Dry Kindling, 10% chance to apply 2 stacks of Burning Embers at once. So when we cast Burning Embers, we have a small chance right now of increasing the amount of Burning Embers, of stacks that we have from Burning Embers. More points in this would be good. I did go ahead and put 1 point, though, however, in Ring of Fire. Not always, but almost always when you get an ability point that's going to give you an actual thing to cast, an ability that's a good ability, it seems like it's worth doing. Ring of Fire is sort of a late, at least if you're playing, let's call it vanilla LOTRO to level 50. This is a late game Redline ability, obviously. And it does a lot of damage to multiple enemies within this, Ring of Fire that it creates. And so I like having that. It gives you one more big ability on different cooldowns. So let's look at a couple of these abilities. First, let's see. First ability I'm going to use, let's get our cat up, is Lightning Storm. And we've just got one enemy here, but let me just show you what it looks like. It does so much damage. We'll kind of watch his health here. And that was without, look at our links, just one-shot it. So that was without cashing out. That is the other thing I don't think I've mentioned in Redline. You want to get some fire abilities on your enemy, and then when you do a lightning ability like that Lightning Storm, then it's going to cash out your Burning Embers, or 1 stack of your Burning Embers, and it's going to make the lightning damage ability go off with much more damage. All right, let's see what the Ring of Fire ability looks like. So that did one-shot it. And again, if that had been multiple enemies would have gotten some dots on them. All right, so this would be your typical pull, though. And I'm actually going to dismiss the pet because between my damage and the pet's damage, nothing's going to live long enough. Oh, did we? Oh, no, it's saying... No, we've got the points. It's fine. That's from before. All right, so your typical opening is going to be immediately... You want to get Burning Embers and then Gust of Wind for the chance to upgrade Burning Embers, and then by then you can cast Burning Embers again. So you go Burning Embers and then Gust of Wind, and then you can go ahead and hit Burning Embers again. And so at that point, it's got multiple dots on it, and you're doing lots of damage. If there's multiple enemies there, there's a chance that it's spreading. The other abilities you're using, what gets really good is Sticky Gourd, When you hit improved sticky gourd, which is over here, liquid fire, sticky gourd becomes improved sticky gourd, applies burning embers to targets every 4 seconds. So again, another way to apply burning embers. So you get in there and you play with it, and you start to see how all of these different abilities, the fire and the lightning damage, start interacting with each other. Here, we'll open up with our improved sticky gourd. All right, so there's the first time that it applied one. It's supposed to be every 4 seconds. So now it's got 2 stacks. So even without casting burning embers, which normally we would be also casting, but you can see multiple stacks we're applying on that enemy. And that's why I think, and here's a Twisted Holly. Let's get our pet out and let's just see how this goes, how long it takes us to kill a signature enemy. It shouldn't take long. So let's open up with our normal opening, burning embers into gust of wind, and then once it's stationary, let's go ahead and put sticky gorge underneath it. We won't even do any of the big ones. We won't do lightning storm or ring of fire. Oh, did you hear that sound? I hope you heard it. That's another thing that I haven't spoken about, but that sound was the sound of my pet getting a flank on the enemy. And whenever that happens, you want to be in the habit of hitting your wizard's fire ability. It does a little bit of damage. The other thing it does is if the pet has just flanked the enemy, then it gives you healing a little bit. So it's kind of a nice thing to just keep in your rotation, especially if you're getting attacked. That can restore some health while you're fighting. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I don't know if you recognize where we are. We're just sort of in some random grove in Eregion. Did I say that right? Hold on, where's the name? Eregion? I think that is correct. Which is one of my favorite zones. Of course, you don't get here till the very end of what content is available. We'll, on this character at least, we'll finish questing here in Eregion, and then after that it'll be Moria, which should be coming out on the Legacy server here in the next couple months at the most, maybe even just like a month to a month and a half. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I'm sure I've left off a lot of things that would be worth talking about, but really I'm just trying to give you an introduction on how I am playing the Lore Master. These abilities down here on the bottom, really 1 through 7, I occasionally use Power of Knowledge if everything's on cooldown or if I just want to see the cool, the way the ability looks, which I think is pretty cool. But mostly it's really 1 through 6 that I'm using. I do use a staff strike occasionally as a melee attack. This is a staff sweep, is not that good, but it's an AoE, it's melee attack. Occasionally I might use it. If it's a big fight, I might set it up with Sticky Tar. If you put Sticky Tar down and then you pull a bunch of enemies in, they're basically going to take more fire damage inside this, plus they're going to move slower. So, you know, it can be worth doing, but a lot of fights aren't going to last long enough that it's worth doing all of that. But I really like red line. Sometimes I'm just in the mood for blue line, so it's kind of nice to have a good level 50 blue line set up so that we can run through an area. Like if you're gathering mats and doing sort of easy mobs and stuff, blue line can be pretty fun as well. So anyway, thanks for joining me. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section. But this has been MDawg, and hope you have gotten to enjoy some LOTRO like I have. Thank you for watching.